Hey everybody, it's your good friend Spider. I'm here to do the whole thing that we're doing. This is awkward. I don't know where I was going with that, but we're back with another episode of the show presented by Uncanny Media. Your number one source for awesome content on the internet. That's real content. Never AI produced, always made by hand, from our brains to your ears. Yeah. How's that for an intro? Let me check the volume real quick here, just to be on the safe side. I think we're good, but I want to make sure that you're picking me up the way you deserve. The way you prefer, so to speak. So how you folks doing? It is the... What is it? This is the second... Is this the second show of the new year, or is this the first show of the new year? I don't know. I'm going to have to take a look. I think it's the second show of the new year. No, it is not. It is the first show of the new year. It is the first show of 2026. We're here. We're awesome. We're doing our thing. We're not going anywhere. And you're still tuning in to listen to me talk whatever nonsense comes out of my mouth. I'm still struggling with some kind of a cold. I don't know what it is. It's not... I have sinus congestion, and I have the cough still, and I'm going to order some actual medicine from Amazon. I'm going to order some cold and flu medicine. Not because I think it's the flu, but just because I want to cover all my bases, and I think that's heavy duty enough without being prescription. So hopefully in the near future, I'm going to be 100% healthy. As healthy as I can be for having a drinking condition. And for not really working out, and for being kind of lazy, and just, as far as that kind of thing goes. How was your New Year? I didn't really celebrate New Year's as a thing, because again, I don't celebrate holidays. And a year is just another year most of the time. I have a lot of plans for this year, I will tell you that. So it's symbolic. And that's really what it all is. I guess it's always symbolic, and you can choose whether you want to be reverent of something symbolic or not. But 2026 is a symbolic year. If you're into numerology, which I have mentioned once or twice on the show before. 2025 was a 9-year. It was the end. It was an ending of a lot of things that needed to be ended. Whereas 2026 is a beginning year. It is a year where you start new things, or you begin new journeys, new experiences, new adventures. And that's what we're doing. We're beginning new things. We're moving forward. We're becoming greater than we are. If luck is to be believed. And we are going to make the best of everything. So, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Did you do anything for New Year's? Like I said, I didn't do anything. I didn't even do the sausages and sauerkraut this year. I didn't really get around to it. But, did you do anything? Did you have a meal? Did you go out and have a good time and come home hungover the next day? You do you. Whatever you want to do. It's no big deal. I want to talk about... I have a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot going on right now. There's an awful lot going on, and I want to get into some of it here and there. And I'm going to start with the big one, because this is a huge thing that's going on in the world right now. It's massive. It is no small bit of politicking and world events. We're going to talk about Venezuela. And I know people are very opinionated, just like they usually are, about anything that's... A lot of people are gonna have a particular position simply because of what Trump did. So they're going to be like, oh, well, Trump did it, so I hate it. And some other people are going to be like, well, Trump did it, so I love it. And the other people in between are going to say, well, this was something that needed to happen. And then other people are going to say, no, it didn't. And we're going to get into some of those kind of things. I want to reiterate that I am not generally a political person. I follow politics very closely. I do. Because they are important to know about. They are important to understand. The political landscape is something that we should all be tuned into on some level, but it doesn't mean you have to be directly involved, because a lot of times becoming directly involved, it asks you to either compromise your ethics and your morals, or it asks you to hold your nose and accept the fact that most politicians are not great people and they don't actually have your best interests in mind, but they're better than the other guy. It's what the prevailing opinion seems to be most of the time. Sure, this person isn't perfect, but they're at least better than this other guy over here. He's a piece of garbage. And that's how people usually vote. That's how usually people advance their politics, their political agendas. And I've said before that it is the complete incorrect way to be political. If you care about issues, you should always be trying to improve the issues that you care about. You should always be trying to advocate for those, and it doesn't matter who gets into the office, you should hold them accountable. All political people should be held accountable. And we don't do that often enough for people that we are loyal to, quote unquote, and we may be loyal to them only because we are affiliated with them, and that's a complete wrong way to look at things. Being angry at Trump because he's Trump is the wrong attitude. Being upset when he does something that is actually worth, like, hey, you know what? Why did he do that? That doesn't make any sense. That's not good for anybody. That's valid. Same thing for Biden. Same thing for Kamala if she had gotten in. Same thing for Obama, for Bush, for whoever. In my local area, in Ohio, we have Governor DeWine, and he is Governor DeSwine, as some people might say. He is a toad. He is a swine. He is... And I don't feel bad calling him these names, because these are the way he's acted. These are the way he's presented himself. He has made a lot of awful decisions, and he's directly involved with a scandal that happened in this state. It's one of the biggest money laundering scandals that has ever occurred in the state of Ohio, involving an energy production company, and he's directly involved, but he's managed to skate free so far. I'm hoping as things go to trial, he gets named and he gets examined and people finally put him to the block. But politics is rarely what we want, and more about just how the money flows, to be perfectly honest. Money talks in politics. But let's get back to Venezuela. Let's get back to this. If you have not heard, the big news as of a few days ago is that the president of Venezuela was taken out of the country by the United States military. And this was interesting. I'm going to say things that you may not... I don't want to get people emotional about this. I'm going to say that they're interesting and that they're fascinating in a dispassionate way. I'm looking at things from an objective way. I'm not looking at things from an emotional way. And I'd like everybody to kind of come along with me on that little journey. If you feel emotionally about this, that's perfectly fine. But just know that I'm not advocating one way or the other when I explain the events that are happening, and I use words like interesting and fascinating, because these things are interesting to me, how it all works out. It doesn't mean that I'm taking a stance on it. So I don't want people to be upset. All right? If you are upset, there's nothing I can do for you, I guess. You're going to be mad, whatever. You're going to tune out, and that's fine. But bear with me here. Okay. The president of Venezuela, Mr. Maduro, and his wife were taken out of the country by the United States military on charges of drug trafficking to the U.S. and terrorism to the U.S. and money, weapons trading to the U.S. illegally. Okay, so these are, and there's more to the charges than what I've said. I've looked into it, and I'm not gonna go completely point by point on every single thing. Some people will say that he was abducted from Venezuela, and that's a valid outlook. We did kind of charge in and just grab him and go. And an article I read, I believe it was USA Today, and I don't put a lot of stock in mainstream media because people don't take the time to actually get the facts when they make these stories. It's Twitter culture now where you see something and automatically you have an opinion about it. And, oh, this thing happened, blah, 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 and you don't bother to look into the subtleties or the complexities or anything that actually occurred. So you miss vital context and you miss the actual facts. So I don't know how true this is. But USA Today says that 75 Venezuelan people were killed in the military action that the U.S. took to take out Maduro and his wife out of the country. And I have not seen whether those were supposed to be civilian casualties. I think they were government casualties. I think they were military. I think there were people trying to defend the president of Venezuela. Now let's get some history here. Okay? Let's get some history here. Venezuela has been problematic for a number of years. Since 2010, really, is when things took a big major downturn and the economy went bad. But in Venezuela was led by Hugo Chavez for a while. He was a revolutionary. He overthrew an old government that they claimed was corrupt, and he instituted a socialist system where the government took care of the needs of the people in many ways. They increased education, they increased food, they increased a whole bunch of other things, banking on the sales of their oil reserves. Oil was a big thing for Venezuela. And this goes all the way back to the 60s, because Venezuela, actually even further back into the 40s, Venezuela was one of the founding members of OPEC. Okay? OPEC is the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, which generally includes most of the Middle East oil-producing countries and Venezuela. It's an interesting, because they're in South America and the others are in the Middle East. But Venezuela was one of the first. It was the first country to float the idea that, hey, let's get together and put together a global oil market that is favorable to us compared to the Western companies, which was Europe and the United States. And in the 60s, OPEC was formed. And That's where Venezuela had most of its money to do most of these socialist programs and most of these things. And they did really well. The economy was awesome for a long time. And then in 2010, things went bad because this is a complicated, interconnected web of national politics going on, of international, global politics going on. It's a very Cold War kind of thing. OPEC, which is again Venezuela, the Middle Eastern countries, and a couple of other countries that went along later, set out to control the oil market for the entire planet. And of course, the United States and Europe and the various other quote-unquote Western countries didn't care for that very much. They weren't interested in that kind of thing, so they were in opposition to it. And this is really the basis for everything, because the United States and possibly Europe, I haven't found definitive articles on that, but I know for a fact the United States levied many, many, many sanctions against Venezuela and the other countries. It's all been about money. It has all been about money from the beginning. And the United States has been in a sort of economic war with OPEC over oil since the 60s, since it was formed. And so they constantly were looking to undercut OPEC. And you know what? I'm gonna put in a personal opinion here. I think OPEC was wrong, just as like I think anybody. If there is a coalition of Western governments, quote unquote, because Western generally is the United States and Europe. It may also include Canada sometimes or Mexico, but usually it's only the United States and Europe. That's the Western countries in most people's idea of the concept. And the United States has its own oil reserves. We have quite a lot of oil reserves. We're doing quite well with oil reserves. But we didn't want to use them. We wanted to hold them strategically. And so we were buying oil from other countries. And when OPEC came around, it looked like a big monopoly, which it kind of was. I mean, that was the point. It was to fight back against the Western countries who were spreading certain ideologies and certain democratic freedoms and all these other things. It's very complicated, so it's a web of socio-economic things going on. There's no easy explanation for it. And I don't think something like OPEC should exist, just like I don't think anything should exist on the opposite side. I don't think there should be a relationship with everybody to set global oil prices in a way that's... I think we should just be trying to make things affordable for our own citizens. But at the same time, I understand, because not every country has access to oil and you have to buy it from the other countries. So what are you going to do? They set the prices because they have the product. So some sort of system has to be in place. But the United States, being what it is, doesn't like competition, despite the fact that we're supposed to be capitalist and we're supposed to be, oh yeah, competition is great, companies this and that, and we love monopolies here. As much as we have systems in place to try to prevent monopolies, we love them here. The United States is all for monopolies. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because that's how it is. If it's something favorable for the U.S. government as far as taxes and things go, it happens. There's going to be a monopoly, and they're not going to care. They're going to do a light investigation and be like, whatever. The current big thing as far as that goes, just to kind of go off to the side a little bit, is the whole Warner Brothers Discovery thing going on with Netflix and Paramount. The government is involved because they want their fair share. They want their cut. And Warner Brothers Discovery is like, we just want to go with Netflix. We think they're best for business because they have the money. And that's a whole thing. But again, it comes down to dollars. It comes down to dollars. And that's what the entire oil thing is. And that's what the whole thing about Venezuela is all about. It's about dollars. If we can knock a peg out of OPEC's power base, then we will. That's how the United States does its thing. I don't agree with it. I'm not saying that that's something that needed to happen or that we should have done it, but that's what happens. Now, the other part of this is a very interesting political question. Because the United States has basically swooped in and abducted, depending on what language you want to listen to. Some people will say it's abducted, and other people will say, well, we've liberated the country, but we've taken their leader into our custody to put them on trial. Now, the interesting wrinkle about all this is that in the last Venezuelan election, according to various publications from the United States, again, there's a lot of bias in the news, so we gotta watch what we're looking at. According to international minders and watchdogs and all these other supposed different organizations, Maduro lost the election to the opposition. But because he was already in power, and he had the strength of the military, and he had the strength of the legislature, he claimed victory anyway. How true is that? I don't know if we'll ever know. We have facts on one side, and we have facts on the other side, and there's a lot of opinions going around. But supposedly the opposition won election in Venezuela, and he said, no, I'm in power now, I'm keeping it, I'm claiming re-election. And he did. So then you have to look at it as, are we doing them a favor by taking him into custody because he's not legitimate? Or do we not have all the facts and he was legitimate? We've just abducted, specifically that word, abducted, a foreign leader of another country. It's complicated. It is insanely complicated. And it all comes down to the fact that the United States wants to hit back at OPEC for setting the global oil market. Because that's the Trump thing. The Trump thing is all business. It's not about... And I know people are going to be mad because I might paint him to be a bad guy or a good guy or whatever. I'm not, again, I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden. I didn't vote for Kamala. I didn't... Okay, I'm neutral in all this. And there are people who are going to say, well, if you're neutral, you've chosen a side, and you've chosen the side of the oppressor, blah, blah, blah. No, I have not. Okay, I'm an observer who sees how things work. And I stand for some things, and I don't stand for other things. And I'm not going to change my moral outlook for anybody. And 100%, I think this was driven by the way that Trump believes he's a business person. He's a business person first and a politician second. All of his politics, he gets advice from various other people who are in the politics game. But he himself will just make these snap decisions like he's leading a corporation. He'll just say, oh yeah, we just gotta fire these people. Fire these people. End of this policy. Do this, do that. And that's really arbitrary and really chaotic. And On some level, I think we kind of need a shakeup in the federal government of the United States. I think we need something like that. But at the same time, I disagree with certain other decisions. I don't know if going in and grabbing Maduro was really the best idea. Excuse me. I don't know if internationally we're going to come out of this well, because the idea, I think, is if the United States can just swoop in and steal one world leader, what's going to stop them from stealing another? What's going to stop them from going into Iran and attempting to take the Ayatollah, right? The supreme leader. What's going to stop us from trying to go to North Korea and just taking him out? North Korea has been awfully quiet lately. Very quiet. I think it's kind of conspicuous. I don't think anybody's thought about that recently. But North Korea, you don't hear a lot about what's going on. They were doing their missile tests out in the ocean. They were making Japan and China nervous. And then recently, you don't hear a whole lot about North Korea. And we're doing things like going in and taking out Venezuelan presidents and things. And I think North Korea is looking at that and being like, they will actually do it. Those crazy Americans, they'll actually do it. I wonder how we deal with that. So it's the world landscape politically, the global politics landscape has shifted in a way that I don't know if we can predict yet. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, because unless somehow some weird occurrence happens in the midterm elections here in the United States and the Democrat Party gets a supermajority of the House and the Senate and then manages to remove Trump, which, again, the Supreme Court, I don't think they'll go for it. Which is interesting, because they haven't agreed with him on everything. They have shot down several of his things. They've been like, no, we're not doing that. And a lot of people said, oh, he's stacking the Supreme Court with people that are loyal to him. But it hasn't been like that. There are people who interpret the law in a certain way, the Constitution in a certain way, and they've stuck to that. And so he's lost with the Supreme Court as many times, if not more, than he's won. But I think if Democrats get a supermajority and they try to remove him, I think the Supreme Court would be like, no, I don't think you have grounds for that. But that depends on how that's another whole complicated set of government interplay. But that's the whole Venezuela situation is tough to predict, because you've heard people who are like, oh yeah, we're glad Maduro's gone, we're celebrating in the streets, but then the military's cracking down and being like, you can't talk about that, because we left the rest of the infrastructure in place, which on the one hand is good. You don't want to go in, force a regime change on a country, and then completely lead to chaos. You don't want to do that. You want to leave some infrastructure in place, but the people that we've left in place have been all of the people who were loyal to the old regime and who are probably not going to change how they're treating the people. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There are parts of the entire situation that don't make any sense at all, and there are parts that are like, okay, I get why you did this. And at the heart of it all, I think it's just, I don't think it has anything to do with drug running or that kind of thing. I mean, that's a serious issue, but I don't think that's why we went in there. I think the whole reason we went in there was to knock one of the legs out from under the table of OPEC. It's crazy how often oil becomes the forefront. It's Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, oil, oil, oil. And I think we use oil kind of like as a boogeyman too. There are a lot of times where we'll go into a place and we'll say, oh yeah, we're keeping the oil fields safe, and I think we're there for another purpose. But in this case, I'm pretty certain it's 100% global economics, because that's what Trump knows. Trump knows business. You can say whether, oh well, he doesn't know it very well and whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not speaking on that. I'm just saying that's his arena, his area of believed expertise is business. And so he's looking at everything as a business transaction and as monopolies and as money and this and that. And so obviously the target would be OPEC. And Venezuela was the vulnerable country that got picked on. In my opinion. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and we'll see how it all plays out. But that's what I think. And I've spent a long time talking about this because it's a big deal. It's a big thing in world news right now. And there are American citizens in D.C. and in New York specifically, because that's where Maduro and his wife are jailed. There are citizens protesting on the street outside the courthouses and wherever in New York City to release Maduro immediately back to his home country. And I get it. I get the sentiment, but it's not going to happen. I've said it before about protesting. I don't have a problem with people being upset with things and being like, you know what, this is wrong, we need to speak out. But be upset in a constructive way. Going to a place and shouting about it is not really helping, especially to an administration that does not care about how upset you are. I think that's pretty clear. I think the current administration does not care one bit how many marches you have, how many signs you hold up. I don't think they care. So what are you going to do to make things better? You have to do the midterms. You have to make sure the people that you want to influence policy get voted in there and do what you've asked them to do. An interesting wrinkle in all this is Fetterman from Pennsylvania. Let me look up. I don't remember his first name. Fetterman. John Fetterman. He was elected in Pennsylvania. He's a Democrat, okay? But he's done a lot of things that have been with the other side. He's made a lot of public opinions about, hey, no, this is the right call. I mean, you people are too obsessed with this and this. And so a lot of people are kind of upset that they elected him. A lot of Democratic people are like, hey, we put you in there for the wrong reasons and now we're done with you. You are responsible for who you elect. Okay? And if they don't do what you want them to do, then maybe you should have picked a different candidate. Okay? Now, I have very little faith in the political system as it stands right now because most political people are in it for money. Not very many political people are actually in it to help the citizens in a way that long term is what we need. Because we need a lot of stuff. We need a lot of prices to go down right now. We need the grocery prices to go down. We need the gas prices to go down. We need insurance prices to go down. We need insurance to actually cover things that are important instead of just charging us a $900 deductible for flu medication. right? Like, you go to the ER, oh yeah, I broke my toe. It's a $1,200 deductible before the insurance is going to cover it in some cases. Like, come on. And I know I'm probably exaggerating on some of the price, but it's about that bad for me. I can't go to the hospital for anything because if I pay monthly for the insurance, I can't pay my other bills. If I don't, I got to pay flat out of pocket. And, you know, it's a trash situation. And these are the things that we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on these things. We should not be focusing on the people of Venezuela. And I'm not trying to be unsympathetic. I don't mean to say that we should just be like, oh, well, the people in Venezuela, screw them. Who cares about them? You know what? I get it. And Palestine and wherever else where there's people suffering, yeah, there's a lot of suffering going on in the world. But we are not the solver of the world's problems as a country. Individually, if you want to go over there and help, by all means, go over there and help. If they let you in their country and allow you to help, help. Go do that. But as a country, we should be taking care of things in this country first. And I'm not saying America first, America, America, America. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that things here need to be better before we can even think about fixing things in other countries. I don't think that's a dumb idea. I don't think that's crazy. I think that it's important. We have a ridiculous homeless problem. We have an issue with people being homeless. We have an issue with drug prices being super high. And I'm not talking about, like, there's a lot of... The commercials I see constantly are about the weight loss drugs, like Ozempic and all that. That's not important. You shouldn't be trying to worry about weight loss drugs. Yes, if you need to lose weight because you're unhealthy, okay. But we should be focusing on wellness medication. And not things that are just going to be a quick fix. I don't know. I don't like to take medication myself, to be honest. And I don't think that's the cure for everything. I think we have a lot of natural things in the world we could be taking instead of drugs and chemicals. But we should have access to the things we need to be healthy. And we don't, because it's expensive. And we're sending vaccines and we're sending whatever to Africa and to India and wherever. And why don't we just work on things here? Why don't we focus on making ourselves feel better health-wise and hunger-wise and home-wise? How can we expect to do a good job in any other country if we can't figure it out here? If we can't figure it out here, what makes us think we're going to be able to figure it out there? And then people will go out in the protests and they'll say, we need to free Palestine and we need to do this for Venezuela, whatever. And what are you doing to help people here? What are you doing personally to help the homeless? To help the sick? To help whoever? What are you doing here? Are you doing anything? Think about it. And I'm not a big charity person. I don't give to a lot of charities. I don't give to the panhandlers on the corner when I'm driving back and forth from the grocery store because there's always somebody there. But I do, when it comes up like, hey, do you want to give $2 to the food bank? If I have a little bit extra, if I'm not strapped super tight trying to feed my own family, sure, I'll toss a couple of bucks to the food bank. I've given money to save animals. I've done a lot of different things, but I have to take care of my family first, right? And that goes the same way for a country. A country's government should take care of its own people first before it tries to help the rest of the world. And is that selfish? No. Because if you can't sustain your own people, how are you going to be able to sustain anybody else? If you try to be the world police, as the United States often does, you're going to be neglecting your own people, which means there's going to be rot. There's going to be disease at the core of your country. And that's how we get into problems. That's how we get these rising crime rates. That's how we get these poverty rates. That's how we get into the problems where we're just not able to take care of ourselves because we're too busy taking care of other people. And I don't know. It's a tough situation. I get it. I know a lot of people are feel a certain way about it, but we have to take care of ourselves first. It's not selfish. It's survival, because if we're taking care of ourselves, we are stronger and we can use that strength to help other people. And I don't mean military strength. I just mean as a country, as a people, we're well fed, we're healthy, we have a great quality of life. Let's try to help other people have that same quality of life after we have achieved it. If we don't have it, we can't provide it. That's what makes sense to me. And that's where we're at with Venezuela. Like, there's people protesting about it. Like, what are you going to do about it? Do you want to go there? And I don't know. Like Cuba. Cuba was a big thing where people were like, oh yeah, we have to help Cuba because whatever, and they're suffering. And the Cuban government just constantly treats its people like garbage. You don't have to believe it, but look it up. It's how it is. Multiple outlets are going to tell you that same thing. We should not be involved in other countries' business until we have solved our own. And there are downsides to that. The whole Russia-Ukraine thing, would Ukraine be in the position it is if we weren't supporting them now? I don't know. Maybe they would have made it through, maybe they wouldn't. The whole thing with Ukraine is because we were messing around with their money against Russia. The whole thing ended up the way it is because we had our fingers in the pot to begin with. If we hadn't been messing around with Ukraine, Russia might never have invaded. It's really our fault. And you don't need to believe it if you don't want to. But look at the historical context about all of it. I'm not going to go through all of it here because there's a lot to it. But the United States has been running things through Ukraine for a long time. And of course, the whole point is to antagonize Russia because we've got them in an economic vice and we're squeezing the life out of them economically. And Russia said, no, we're not putting up with it anymore. We're going to go in and we're going to take things. So now we're in a tight spot because we can't really say, oh, well, we're sorry, we were doing this to you. Can you give it back? No, because we're trying to save face. The United States federally on a world stage has not performed well. And I'm not even going to say that that's all Trump's fault. I'm blaming it on the way that our federal government does its business. All the way back into the 80s, even before that. The United States has had this weird idea that everybody else has to do what we want them to do. And if you don't, well then screw you. And that's led us to the situation that we're in today. We're enemies with Russia, we're enemies with China, and I'm not saying we should cozy up to those two people. Because China has made a ton of terrible decisions. They actively oppress people on a regular basis. Russia has had hit squads go out to other countries and murder people. I mean, but did we push them into these positions? Were they always destined to do that? Or maybe was it because we backed them into the corner? And that's not to say that we should all of a sudden reverse and play nice with them, because they're going to take whatever they can take from us, because that's where they're at now. But at the same time, it's like maybe we could have made different decisions, and they might not have turned out the way that they did. There's a lot of history to all of that. I'm not just spouting bullshit on it. I'm not. Look up the historical context for a lot of these things. Look them up. That's all I'm saying. So, we got a lot out of that topic. I want to talk about some future events now. I want to talk about some things upcoming after I take this away from a cat that's playing with something he shouldn't be. What is this? You don't need this. Don't play with that. Stop it. Sticker. Anyway, back to the microphone. What is coming up in the future? This week, today, of course, by the time you hear this, it's going to be Wednesday, because these episodes debut on Wednesday morning. But this week, we're going to be having the first new episode of the new season of This Uncanny Earth, which is really the beginning of all of my podcasting. Well, the other show that we must not name was the beginning of my podcasting history, but This Uncanny Earth is what really took off after that. We're going to have the new season of that coming up on Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Pacific. And let me take a look. What do we have slated? I think the topic is going to be, we're still working in trios. We had a theme in the last season where we were working in trios of episodes. We're talking about Lost Civilizations. Rob is going to start us off, Robert Solomon, followed by Steven the following week, and myself the following week after that. 3 episodes of Lost Civilizations. And Rob is going to be talking about the Lost Civilization of Bagan, or Bagan, or I don't know how he pronounces it. I don't remember. We're going to find out. January 8th, 2026, as of this recording. But that's the debut of the new season of This Uncanny Earth. And we're going to have a few things that are going to be different. A few things are not going to be the same. So tune in and don't miss it. Of course, we are going to continue to do these episodes of Spider Does Things. Well, it's not Spider Does Things anymore, is it? It's Uncanny Media, the show. I don't know why I flipped into the old switch there. I am still using that handle for YouTube, Spider Does Things on YouTube. If you want to watch gaming videos, if you want to watch my reviews of spirits, drinkable spirits, not like ghosty ghost, but, beer, wine, whiskey, vodka, whatever. And my robot reviews. I'm still reviewing mostly Hasbro, but also other third-party things. robo reviews, and occasionally a food review if there's a new sandwich at a local fast food restaurant or something like that. So there's a lot of content going on my YouTube channel, Spider Does Things, which is part of the Uncanny Media umbrella. So we've got that. We've got This Uncanny Earth. We have a lot of our various affiliates are all doing their own thing, which I'm pleased with. I anticipate a lot of growth in the affiliate area over the course of this year. We're working with Musicians Hangout, who just had their season premiere just a few days ago on this past Monday. So they are now in their new season. We are working still with Cooking Basically. She is doing new recipes, new videos, all kinds of new stuff, and we're very happy to support her in everything that she does. We're still involved with Big Buff Records, which is kind of in a static kind of... I don't know what Big Buff is doing right now, to be perfectly honest. I'm still open for music submissions, for artist submissions. I would love to give people distribution deals and lock them in to a contract with Big Buff Records to help you attain your future. Not a lot of people have taken me up on that offer. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say that there's not a lot of people who have taken that commitment. And as a whole, the company is kind of just sitting in a holding pattern. Not a lot of people are doing things. We don't have a lot of shows lined up. You know, I don't know. If you want to be involved, we would love to help you. We would love to help you. You got to get in touch, though. We're not going to reach out to other people. We're not going to reach out to you. You're going to have to send us a message and be like, hey, I'm interested. And then we'll review what you've got and we'll send you an offer. Very soon, Steven from This Uncanny Earth, formerly Steven the intern, he's no longer an intern, he's a full member of the team. He is going to have a podcast of his own here on Spreaker. I'm going to be managing that for him. I'm not going to be on the episodes. You won't hear my voice. You will only hear Steven. But I will be making sure that they're posted weekly, and that he gets his ad revenue and all that other good stuff. And that's going to be upcoming. He's going to have a lot of good, interesting things to talk about because he's very opinionated, and I wanted to give him a platform to talk about those opinions. Because I think everybody should get the opportunity to say what they want in an open forum. And this will be Steven's chance. So I'm going to wait until he's fully prepared before I give you the name of the show and the details about what he's doing. But it is coming soon. Also, if you are in the Pacific Northwest, don't forget that Lou Jack Promotions is your hookup for local shows. I think it's the third annual Washington State Music Awards run by Lou Jack Promotions is going to be starting up very soon. They're going to be taking votes and various other things. We are going to be a sponsor of that event. I have not yet passed the money along to Lou Jack Promotions, but we will be doing that very shortly to make sure we get in on that. Uncanny Media will be a sponsor of the Washington State Independent Music Awards. And we will be proud to do it, despite the fact that we are in Ohio primarily, but we support all of our Washington State friends. So what else? What else do I got going on? I don't know. There's a lot happening. There are going to be some things that will change, but you can always tune in to listen to me here on Uncanny Media, the show. to talk about interesting things and give you my opinions and do some political commentary, maybe talk about some wrestling. I don't know if anybody caught the latest episode of WWE Raw, and we're not going to get into that now that it's at the end of the show, but it was a crossover with Netflix's Stranger Things, and it was kind of goofy. I don't know. I don't think people were into it. It was just kind of a money-grabbing scheme, of course. But whatever, it was there. The show was okay. Some interesting things happened. Get the S in the right place, right? Get your your pronunciation and your grammatic things in the right places, okay? It's Mr. Spider over here. You can tell I'm almost finished because I'm starting to get blah, 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 and not making any sense. But that's it. That's all we've got. Thank you for tuning in. Next week's episode, what are we talking about? Do I have a title for next week? Let me take a look. I don't have a topic picked out yet, but I'm sure I will by the time we get there. So bear with me. It's always a good time. I appreciate everybody that tunes in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything that you do for us. Uncanny Media is your hookup for entertainment. And that's all I've got. That's all I'm going to do. Have a good night.